Now let's take a look at the mirror command in Rhino. So let's isolate this particular geometry that we have. Let's copy paste this in the -x direction like this, and let's make a mirror of this particular form. Let's go to the top viewport and we will create a mirror of this particular polysurface that we have. So in order to mirror geometry, you just select it and type in mirror, and once you have typed in, you can see the first command which says mirror. You can just click on that, and now you have to specify a mirror plane, and just make sure that the copy is yes if you want the original geometry to stay in its own place. If you turn it to no, then the original geometry will be deleted. So the start of the mirror plane, just keep ortho on if you want a straight plane. So in this case I want to mirror it like this, in this fashion. So I'll start my plane like this and I'll end it like this. So as you can see, the object will be mirrored in the other direction, and I'll end the mirror plane like this, just clicking on it, and hence I will have mirrored my 3D polysurface in this fashion. I can also do it one more time using the mirror command. Let's mirror this entire thing on the other side. So we can go into the top viewport and we can select both of them and type in mirror once again and hit enter. This time we can use the mirror plane as this, like this. We can keep the plane like this and just click. Now as you can see, we have mirrored our object times the x and the y directions. So that was mirroring in Rhino. Now let's take a look at the rebuild command. So the rebuild command is essentially used to increase the detailing of a polysurface or of a NURBS object or of a mesh object. So let's try and rebuild some geometry that we have. So as you can see, this particular surface, let's try exploding it first. So you can just select the form and just type explode, and once you type explode, it will be exploded into 3 surfaces like this. So you have this, you have the upper face, and you have the lower face. So let's try rebuilding this particular wall, this particular face that you have. So you can select this external face and you can type in rebuild. So you can see the first command that appears says rebuild. You can click on that, and after you do that, this particular option will appear, which is asking you for the point counts and the degrees, and let's keep the point count to 50 by 50. U and the V basically means the x and the y direction of the surface rebuild. As you can see in the 3D, you can look at like very closely, and you can see the red and the green axis which indicates the U and the V directions. So the U direction is the red arrows and the V directions are the green arrows. So you can keep them 50 by 50, and you can click on preview to see how it will look. So in this case, if I click on preview, as you can see, I have rebuilt my surface into these many iso curves, and I can hit OK. Now as you can see, I have increased the curvature and the detailing of this particular face. So you can see a clear difference between this face over here and this face. Now let's take a look at the contour command. So in order to understand the contour command, let's try creating a geometry that we can really contour. So let's try isolating this particular geometry over here. Once you isolate this over here, then we can perform the contour command on this particular box. So let's try moving it in the top viewport a little bit. Yeah, that makes sense. And now let's try to contour this. So you can just type in contour in the command line and you can hit enter. So it will ask you for the objects that you want to contour. So you can select this particular box in this case, and you can press enter when you are done. And now it's asking you for the contour plane base point, so let's select the base point as this, and you can click. Now it is asking you for the direction perpendicular to the contour planes. So in this case, if I want my contour planes like this, the direction perpendicular to the contour planes will be this. So I can give it a direction like this. I can just click, and the distance between the contours, I can keep them as 0.35. I can just press enter. After pressing enter, you can see on the screen that the contouring process is going on. The entire 3D object will be contoured, and now after the thing is over, you can move into your perspective viewport and click anywhere, and you can just hide this particular box that you had. Let's move it, and as you can see, you have a proper contouring of your 3D box. Let's repeat the same operation on this particular object. So you can just copy paste it by clicking on the Alt button, and you can drag it this manner. And let's try contour this. So you can move. So before contouring this, let's try contouring it in the front viewport this time. Go to the front viewport and select your object that you want to contour with this, and let's try using the contour command. So you can type in contour, and you can press enter, and you can select the object for contours, which will be this, and you can hit enter. Now it will ask you for the contour plane base point. You can select any point on the edge, so let's select this, and it will ask you for the direction perpendicular to the contour planes. Now let's try contouring it diagonally. So the direction perpendicular to this diagonal plane will be this. Let's try giving it this direction, and let the distance between the contours be 0.6 this time, and press enter. Once you do that, you can see the entire 3D geometry is being contoured diagonally. And once the contouring is done, you can move in your perspective viewport, and you can take a look at how this thing actually looks like. You can isolate it using the gumball tool like this, and you can see the contouring happen in your 3D object. So that was the contouring operation in Rhino. Now let's take a look at something known as cage edit. Let's try using cage edit on this particular object. So you can actually select the object. Let's try copying it once more in the x-axis. You can hold on to Alt and you can drag it. So let's try using cage edit over here. You can select your object, and you can select it, and you can type cage edit. You can see the cage edit command over here. Click on it. Now it will ask you to select the control object. So let's try selecting bounding box this time. So you can select bounding box. Now it will ask you for the coordinate system after you are done selecting bounding box. So over here you need to understand the C plane is the grid that you can see in Rhino. Grid that is there on every viewport, that's the C plane. Okay, but in this case we want a world coordinate system. So you can click on world, and now you can clearly notice it is asking you for the cage parameters, and X point count, Y point count, and the Z point count are 4, 4, 4. The degrees are 3. So the degrees are always one less than the point counts. So you can just leave them like this, and for a greater accuracy you can increase the X, Y and the Z point counts, but in this case you can just let them be and press enter. And once you are done pressing enter, it is asking you for the region to edit. You can click on global. Once you have clicked on global, now as you can see we have created a rectangular cage around our 3D geometry. Now this cage can be used to edit this particular geometry using the control points. So you can see the control points over here. So what if select a particular control point and you use the gumball tool to move it in this direction like this. As you can see, as you move it, you can clearly see some deformation happening. So what if you select it and you move it a great deal like this? You can see a deformation happening in this manner. Let's try distorting it in the other directions as well. You can select multiple points by holding on shift. Once you select multiple points, you can deform it like this. See how it works. So this is cage editing in Rhino. You can actually play around with these kinds of parameters and you can see what kind of shape you can actually achieve. So what if I select this entire point system over here? Deselect something, you can just hold on to control and click on it once again to deselect it. If you select all these points over here and if you move it like this, you can see the entire thing deforms according to the way you move the points. So this is cage editing and you can actually play around with it until and unless you get a form that you want to work with. And once you are done, you can just hit on escape. You can select this cage that you just created and you can actually delete it, and your object will be ready like this. So now that we have taken a look at some complex commands like contour and cage editing, let's take a look at a very basic command that we know as split. So what happens if we create a geometry like this using the polyline shortcut over here, and if I create a geometry, just make sure your ortho is on the bottom, and you can also move to your top viewport like this, and then you can start creating a geometry. Zoom in and create something like this. You are to be working in a floor plan of some particular building and you have something like this. And now if something else is intersecting this particular line this fashion, so what do we do to split these objects? So let's try splitting these particular lines. So you can just click on them and understand that and you can see that these are closed polylines. So this is a closed polyline and this is a closed polyline. What happens if you split them? So you can just type split and press enter. It will ask you for the object to split. Let's try splitting this and you can hit enter. Now it will ask you for the cutting objects. So we want to split this with this particular line. You can click on the other polyline and you can press enter. Now after doing that, you can see that this particular curve has been now split up. So this particular curve has been split up into 4 curves. So you have this particular curve, you have one inside over here, you have another over here, and you have another one over here. So we have split up this particular polyline into 4 different segments. So we can also try splitting surfaces. So to split surfaces, let's try splitting this particular surface. Let's go into a perspective view and let's try splitting surfaces. So what will happen if you select a particular surface and if you drag it inside another surface like this? So as you can see, the 2 surfaces are overlapping right now. So if I want to split these 2, I can just type split and press enter. If I want to split this particular surface, select it and I press enter, and I want to split it with this cutting object, which is this organic planar surface. So I click on it and I hit enter. As you can see, this particular object has been isolated. And just in case, whenever in Rhino you are selecting something and a selection menu comes up, that is an indication of Rhino actually telling you that it does not understand which surface do you want it to select. So in this case, do you want me to select this particular surface that you can see highlighted right now, or the other surface, this one? So whichever one you select, it will work in your favor. So in this case I want to select this particular surface, not this one. So I click on this, I select it. So this is splitting in case of surfaces. What happens when we split using two solid objects? So let's try splitting this particular object with this one. So you can just move one object inside another one like this. As you can see, it's intersecting over here. So if I just type split and press enter, so I can split this particular one and press enter, and I can use this one as a cutting object. So I select this and I press enter. Now you can see I have split up my solid object. If you select it and if you drag it out, you can see that this particular object is split up in this fashion. You can also split planar surfaces with curves. So if I create a planar surface, if I just create a rectangle like this using a shortcut, and I select my rectangle and I type planar surface, I press enter and turn it into a planar surface, and I create a curve on top of it. So if I use this particular shortcut of control point curve and I create a curve on top of it like this, I can also split my planar surface using this curve. So I'll select my planar surface, I'll type in split and I'll press enter. And for the cutting objects, I'll select my curve, and it's asking me to press enter when I'm done, and I'll press enter. As I press enter, you can see that I have split up my surface into two parts. So that is a basic of split. You can split curves, you can split surfaces with surfaces, you can split solids with solids, and you can also split planar surfaces with curves. So now let's take a look at trimming objects. So if you have lines like this, and you want to trim them out from a particular edge or from a particular standpoint, then all you have to do is type in trim and press enter. So what if in this case I want to trim out this particular edge and this particular edge? So my cutting object will be this line. So I'll select the line and I'll press enter. Now I can trim these edges. So I'll just have to select the edge that I want to trim like this, and it will be trimmed out. Do the same for this curve, select the edge and it will be trimmed out. So and when I'm done, I can just press enter. That is the basics of trimming. Let's take a look at a command called twist. So for using this command, we can actually create a surface from 3 or 4 corner points using this particular shortcut. You can create a surface like this, and we can select that surface and we can extrude it. Just type in extrude surface, extrude SRF, and click on it. Extrude it to a distance like this. Once you're done, now let's try using the twist command on this particular 3D solid. So all you have to do is select your solid and type in twist. So when you type in twist, it will ask you for the start of the twist axis. So in order to twist a particular thing, you have to create an axis first. So let's try creating an axis before applying the twist command. In this case, we have to create an axis from this particular point to this particular point on the bottom. So let's try creating a diagonal over here in this face and obtaining the point and doing the same on the other edge. You can go to the base and using the polyline command over here, you can create a diagonal like this. You can also create a diagonal over here. And after you are done, you can just join the intersections of these two diagonals by a line. So you can just type in line and press enter. You can join the intersection like this. Once you are done joining the intersection, all you can do is select the object and type in hide, which will hide the object. And if you hide the object, you can see the line that you just made. You can select your line and you can move it up a little bit so that we have an indication of where the axis is. And now you can type show to show back your object. And now after you're done with all that, let's try using the twist command. So you can type in twist and press enter. Now it will ask you for the objects to twist. You can select your object that you want to twist and you can press enter. And now it will ask you for the start of the twist axis. So we all know where the twist axis is. So this is the start of the twist axis. You can select the end, and the other end is on the other end, which is over here. Select any point on the end and we can select this. Now it will ask you for the angle or for the reference point. So for the angle or for the reference point, you can actually go to your top view and you can try using a reference point to twist this entire geometry. So in this case, I'll give it a reference point of this edge and I will twist my object like this. As you can see, let's turn off the ortho and then twist. As you can see, as I'm twisting, the entire thing is deforming. So I can twist it up to this degree and I can click and I'm done. Now you can actually go to your perspective view. You can take a look at how we have twisted this entire form. That is twisting for you in Rhino 6. You can also delete the curves after you are done. You can just select the curves that we had created for creating the axis. Just delete them after you are done. You can isolate this form on another side. So that's the twist command.